Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Price List Update Summary video series brought to you by Actionable Insights. You've got Harrison here and you've got Whatley there. We're here to talk about the changes to the Xactimate price list in December of 2022. What's up, Whatley? We've got 5 new line items to discuss and a bunch of changes to existing line items. Things that people have wanted to change for a very long time have actually finally changed in December of 2022. It's been a big year. A lot of new line items. Be on the lookout for another video this month. Whatley, we're going to shoot our top 5 new line items of 2022 video next. So a lot of big changes to the Xactimate price list this year. Let's take a look at December 2022 specifically in this particular video. All right, Whatley, 5 new line items. I've got them here in my X1 for December 2022. 3 line items in the APP Appliance category. Microwave drawer. We've got standard grade, normal, and a high grade option. What do you think about these new line items around microwave drawers?
Yeah, I think they're a warranted addition. I think that a lot of new builds are moving towards a drawer configuration for microwave because you can put like a face of a cabinet on it and they kind of disappear into the cabinet tree assembly. But other than that, I don't know that they're really that exciting. It just was a pain in the butt to estimate for it before they existed. So now they're here. And so now there's less pain.
If people are doing something in the field and there's no line item for it, it makes it very difficult to settle the claim. Hence why we need line items for the things that people, do in their kitchens these days, like microwave drawers. One thing I want to point out here, Whatley, you can look at the quality section of this line item. It says may include trim kit, may have incandescent or LED light.
Yeah, that's pretty rare, right? Because every line item I can think of off the top of my head says it would exclude the light. This is one of the very few where it's included.
So it says microwave drawer, appliance, and installation. Sounds like if it's kind of a built-in kit, maybe additional line items wouldn't be needed. But if you need to build something custom, then maybe the additional line items for those specific things may be needed or not.
Yeah, it makes sense because it would ship with the light. And there's no way you're going to get a new microwave and the light bulb's not going to be in the appliance. So it's just saying that's included. It's interesting.
2 other line items new this month. In the DMO Demolition category, we have DMO BAR Z and DMO BAR Z Plus. Now, for those of you that look at BAR Z and BAR Z Plus as selector codes, you go, hey, I've seen that before. You're right. We've had WTR BAR Z Plus for peel and seal zippers and heavy duty peel and seal zippers. Now we have those materials in the DMO category. Why was it necessary to take these line items from the WTR, HMR categories and alike and bring peel and seal zippers into the DMO category?
Program work. So you guys that do program work on both sides of the claim, you know that you tend to exclude various categories. So if you're doing a repair estimate, adjuster does not typically appreciate it if you include WTR line items. And conversely, if you're doing WTR, they want you to stay in WTR, so on. So having the ability to set up containment and a dust barrier, and because we did have that in DMO. That was the weird part, right?
Yeah, we had DMO BAR.
DMO BAR.
Or the containment itself.
Yeah, but we didn't have this zipper. So now those two things reconcile because you were doing what's called a cross-category inclusion, which isn't great for program work. And then certainly if you were to build logic around that in the software, it becomes wobbly when you go cross-category. So that's now overcome by events.
Which means the actionable profile, which includes live estimating guidance. Whatley, we've got work to do now to add some new guidance around, hey, if you're using DMO BAR in the repair type estimate and you need a peel and seal zipper, don't forget that these line items exist, DMO BAR Z. So basically, anytime you're using the line item DMO BAR for containment, there'll be a little alert that says, hey, did you need zippers? Don't forget, that's going to be in the actionable profile. All right.
Yeah, it's in there now. It's just guiding the users to the W2R category, but that'll be resolved by January.
It's time for a tweak. All right. Let's see here. Let's now take a look at what changed. So we've taken a look at the 5 new line items, but the pricing department at Verisk makes changes to a bunch of existing line items. So let's start out here at the top and take a look at what changed when it came to yield and supporting events this month. Wally, we have something right here, WTR MUCK. There's a big change to WTR MUCK. What changed this month?
Well, this is a weird line item historically because every WTR line item I could think of was tied to the CLN-R trade code, which we know to be our water technician and remediation professional. But this particular line item, for some reason, I suppose it was unskilled labor, somebody's assumption was, they tied it to general labor for mucking out. I believe a case was made from the restorer side of the house that, hey, like if we're going to do muck out, and that's going to be, in contaminated soil, because that's the only reason you would muck it out, Harrison. If it was just water on dirt, you'd leave it be. But so this is sewage, right? If you're mucking, it implies Cat 3 sewage, some pretty nasty stuff, and you'd want your water techs performing that work, right? Not general laborers. You can't go to Labor Ready and hire them to deal with sewage. It doesn't fly. You know what I mean by Labor Ready, like right on time talent.
Yep.
That doesn't work. they're not it's not gonna work.
None of those.
And if it works for day one, they're not gonna show up for day two, so on. So that's water tech. And what's the difference between those class of employees? Well, your general laborers, right? They don't have any particular set of skills and they require a lot of supervision, but they're a little cheaper, right? Because they're not as highly trained and also not as productive as a result. And so that's what you see expressed here in the change. So the pricing department has made the update such that this
WTR MUCK line item, which on the left side in November used the DMO labor, demolition labor, and the update is on the right side. It is now cleaning remediation technician labor.
Yeah, but you'll notice the price per unit goes down. And so what would influence that? And that would be the direct yield is what's influencing that down, because we know that CLN-R, not in every single market, Harrison, but in 90% of your markets, it's going to pay another, say, $6 to $8 more than general labor per hour. But you see the unit price go down. Well, that's because why? The direct yield has gone up. And so this is the position that you and I have taken at Actionable for many years about, okay, well, if you're going to update the trade code, then you likely need to make an adjustment to
direct
yield, because the higher paid professionals, like a professional roofer, is going to be able to demo a roof faster than a general laborer who's just showing up hungover and doesn't care about their job, because if they cared about their job, they wouldn't be a general laborer. So that notion is represented really acutely here. So you've got a more attractive labor rate if you're a restorer. However, you've got a less attractive yield because they're more productive. And so it's essentially a wash for the pricing.
Now, a reminder that generally when we're playing with labor trade codes and yields, especially when the pricing department's doing it, they're trying to report what the stated average price is to perform that activity in this particular region. This is the San Diego price list. So generally speaking, they've got reports that it costs $255 here. They've updated the trade code to the proper trade code performing that activity, and they increased the yield to reflect the additional productivity of that higher skilled position, and ultimately to land at the reported price to perform that activity in this area. So while this conversation around, hey, why is DMO the default trade code for WTR line items, or for example, roofing demo, we see this conversation come up every month on Xactimate Ninjas, our Facebook group. It's just, hey, some people want something. Here it is. It's happened. But just note that there's a reason these line items and how line items function between components, yields, and the ultimate RCV unit price for that particular one it's a unique relationship, which makes the Xactimate software so intriguing. And to have that open system to be able to tweak all this stuff, every line item and every estimate is very useful for restorers and adjusters trying to get to the right scope at the right price.
Yeah, I think this is a really common misconception. I see it on Ninjas every month, and I just don't have the energy to take it on constantly. I saw a post like 3 weeks ago and was like, this adjuster's crazy. I changed everything. I changed the train code on everything. That's a person doing the work. And like, they're telling me I'm nuts. And, there's a bunch of positive feedback loop of people saying, no, the adjuster's nuts. Like, no, it's just like everything in Xactimate and claim settlement. It's gray. It's gray water. And you got to wade through it to get to the truth. And so I think the real problem is, Harrison, is that when you detach or remove things, in Xactimate.
It defaults to DMO.
In almost every case, it's DMO. I can think of ridge cap is different now. I think the 200 amp, 300 amp panels are different now for electrical. But in general, if you're removing something, it's done DMO. And keep in mind that the pricing department, Greg's my department, they're going, well, how can we get to an accurate unit price? It's not objectively wrong because of that, but maybe they didn't use like the optimal labor code. And if they had to do over again, I'll speak for them, like they might have from the outset tied the removal code wildly more often to the replacement code, because a lot of times it is the same professional performing that work, but not in every case. So there is no perfect answer for how the price list could have been compiled, but just to change your labor codes like unilaterally without giving any thought to how that impacts yield, I don't think you're being intellectually honest with your associated price structure. I think the best way to do it, if you were to make that update as a restorer, is make a adjustment to both your yield. So your yield would typically go up if your trade code would be improved to something that would pay out at a higher rate.
Well said. Big change this month around WTR MUCK. That's why I wanted us to break it down and talk about these DMO labor trade codes across removal line items in Xactimate. All right, let's keep moving and grooving here. We have PLM and WTR line items for bidet, detach and reset, toilet detach and reset, and toilet detach. Now, while we've been training Xactimate for a while here at Actionable Insights, and one of the things that we trained towards was reminding people that when you detach a toilet or alike, what are you doing to store that toilet? And the most common answer was along the lines of, we put that toilet in a trash bag, then we store that toilet in the garage for 4 to 8 weeks while we perform the repair. Okay, so essentially what the pricing department has done here is done their own research around, hey, what activities are being performed when restorers are detaching bidets and toilets. They did confirm that it is typical to store those appliances in a trash bag. And what do we see here? In December of 2022, a trash bag has been added to the detach and reset line items for toilets and bidets.
It's a be careful what you ask for lesson. I imagine this started on the carrier side, and this makes me smile because it might have been Actionable's influence that was the catalyst for this, but some carriers complain that all these contractors are including these bags to augment their detach of toilets. It's 80 cents. I can't believe somebody like latched onto that as being important, but okay. So they have that conversation. Then the pricing department goes out, reaches out to restorers, and then they, I'm sure, ask, what do you do when you detach toilet? They say, oh, put it in a plastic bag. They, okay, confirmed. And now every single line item for the rest of time is gone up by 80 cents. Be careful what you wish for. I think the same thing goes for WTR MUCK, Harrison. I think probably that came from like the contractor side of the house. Hey,
updating line items.
This needs to be a CLN-R, and then you look at the line item and it's gone down by 5 cents a square foot, which is, you know, immaterial, but be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, what does this actually mean? If you are a restorer, you're detaching bidets and toilets, and you've been previously invoicing for a trash bag, stop. Unless you need additional trash bags, and it can explain why explain via an F9 note. Why? Because trash bag is now included in the detach and reset line items for toilets and bidets. It's included.
This is like 20 hours of work for your team to go update the insight sheet database, the macros, the rules. Good luck.
I hadn't thought about that yet.
Yeah.
Everything that guides these people to remind them to use a trash bag now has to be changed.
Unwound.
And essentially to not remind them to use
it's a living document. You and I knew that. When we wrote that thing and published it in 2017, we're like, well, this is never going to end.
Okay, hey, that's great. I'd rather the line item be accurate and give my team work to make
it's a better way to do
accurate.
It. Yep. Good. By the way, nod to the pricing department. Like that was the right way to handle that one.
Yep.
Tip of the 100%. Cap.
Okay, last in our yield changes for December, 2 line items, Whatley, I've never seen before. And I always find it fun when we dive into line items I've never seen before. A donut cutter / dropper assembly and donut production manual system, 34 dozen per hour.
Yeah, big changes.
Yeah,
the cutter, the price structures on the donut cutters lately, I've been tracking this, right? They have been skyrocketing. However, the donut production, the manual systems, right? The
Yeah.
bottom has fallen out of that market entirely.
Okay, so for both of these line items, just so everybody's clear, the material around donut plunger cylinder assemblies
That's what
has
it is.
changed. The
Mhm.
direct yield used
Supply
to be
chain.
4. Now it's 1.5, 0.25 for here and 1.5 for the manual system. Reminder, direct yield generally has an inverse relationship with the price of a line item. When yield goes down, productivity goes down, something gets harder to do and more expensive. So typically you can see the direct yield around materials here has gone down, and as a result, the price of these donut cutter line items has popped up. So December donuts, if you've got any fires out there in donut warehouses, you've got new line
Donut
items or
warehouses.
more accurate line items for the donut production manual systems, 34 dozen per hour. Okay.
Got it. And everything I said about donuts, I made up for those of you who are unclear.
Got it. Excellent.
That was
good to know.
Communicated or implied.
Okay, now let's take a look at additional item information changes. Taking a look here, we have microwave oven and DMO bar. So these line items already existed in some fashion in the price list. They've just literally, both of them have had their additional item information updated to reflect, hey, there's also new line items that exist, DMO bar Z. For example, DMO bar used to say, if you need a zipper, use WTR bar Z.
Not anymore.
Now, because there is a
DMO.
DMO bar Z, it says use DMO bar Z. So that's a
Nice.
perfect example of like, hey, no more cross-category inclusion. The line item points to the right sister line item. We like that. Easy to go. Okay, this is a fun one. You and I, in preparation for this video, stumbled a little bit talking about this one. And in fact, Actionable had a conversation with somebody 2 weeks ago, reaching out, trying to clarify about this. So
this is a big one. Like, I think this is actually going to impact claim settlement more than any other change. Because these line items are used so commonly.
And when we were writing the actionable alerts around negative air machines and filters, this is where we first started to think about, hey, what is actually going on here? So important to note, there are 2 filter sizes, 2 HEPA filter sizes in Xactimate, normal and large. The normal negative air machine and the large negative air machine use the normal HEPA filter. The extra large negative air machine uses the large HEPA filter. So extra large machine, large filter. Large machine or normal machine, normal filter. Right? All right. I think I said that pretty clearly. Like, I had to practice a few times to get that one right. So let's see at the line items here, because historically, the extra large NAFAN negative air machine was pointing to the large HEPA filter. However, that's not actually the line item for the large HEPA filter. So it's been updated to now say large HEPA filter for the extra large negative air machine.
Yes.
All right. And we pulled this up because we wanted to look at, hey, let's take a look at the existing line item for a large negative air machine, not extra large, but large. And it does point to the normal HEPA filter.
Yep.
So for those of you that, by the way, there is no extra large HEPA filter. So apologies in advance that some of this is confusing, because Xactimate does a pretty good job of grade matching grade, size matching size. There's a line item, normal to normal, large to large, extra large to extra large. This is like one of the few scenarios
some deviation
where
I can think of doorbells are like that. So you've got a lot of different grades of chimes, maybe premium and high, standard average grades of chimes, but then your
3 button options.
Yeah, like the button options, there's like 2. So it's kind of mental gymnastics figuring out how those map up. But that's an obscure case, right? How often do we estimate for a doorbell? I mean, once a year on either side of the claim, but how often are we including a negative air scrubber daily? And the associated filter charge, albeit contentious, this is important we get right. And so this is a big deal. And so again, tip of the cap, like, this is an important clarification. And now with the rule scripts within the actionable profile by January, this will be all optimized.
Boom. Okay. Next, let's take a look at WTR DHM. These line items have had the additional item information just to reference AHAM pint calculations properly. Some updates there. These chain link fence line items all now reference the gauge of the material. So those are pretty surface level changes. I'm not going to dive into anything there. That pretty much wraps up the changes to existing line items in December 2022 in the Xactimate price list. Let's take a look at future line items and changes. The pricing department likes to give us a little idea of what may come next. Future in changes or new line items, or quality update in existing items to account for sensor faucets. We've seen them working on that for the last month or two. New items for large multi-panel or panoramic patio doors. My friends just did a remodel and have one of those kind of accordion type patio doors now.
I wonder what that's what they mean.
So I would assume
I think that's what they
multi-panel
mean.
panoramic patio doors is what they're talking about here. It
Yeah.
was out of my price range, but they're pretty cool. So it's
Yeah,
nice
they
to
are
see
cool.
line items coming for those around newer building selections. New items for snow safety and barrier fencing, and items for humidity sensors / fan control switch. So
Yeah,
great.
good.
Got a bunch of new changes and future changes. All right, Whatley, that's what we've got for December 2022. 5 new line items, changes to a bunch of existing line items. Some of those being changes that people have been asking for a long time. So it's great. This has been a wonderful year for the Xactimate price list. And I'm looking forward to some of the additional content we have coming around our top 5 new line items of 2022 and like. In the meantime, thank you for following and supporting Actionable Insights. Go check out the Actionable Xactimate profile. When you're writing estimates in our profile in Xactimate, we're going to help guide you to the best scope the first time. We're going to help catch mistakes you're making while you're writing, and we're going to help identify what line items should you be including in your estimate that you haven't included yet. It's very helpful. All right. In the meantime, good luck settling those claims out there.
Keep building.